If you play the Italian game, these are the 7 best attacking plans you should know. I'm Grandmaster Igor Smirnov, and let's go ahead and get started. Starting off with the move pawn to d6, which is something on lower rating levels you're gonna face quite frequently, but here we've got a few unpleasant surprises for your opponent. First off, if they just develop casually, instead of simply castling, you've got this sudden attack and move, which gives you a massive attack and a serious advantage right away. At the very least, you're gonna take their pawn and continue your attack after that, or black will have to give up some material. That said, most of the time your opponent is gonna develop their bishop because this is exactly what they planned with their previous move. And now this pin looks annoying, but hundreds of thousands of players familiar with the legal checkmating pattern played here this beautiful move knight takes e5, which finished the game quickly. Unfortunately, not in white's favor, because if black simply recaptures, now it's time for white to resign. Now, the idea was right, but we definitely need to improve the execution. So first, it's very important to attack this bishop with your pawn. And now your opponent is at the crossroad. If he captures here, no problem, you simply recapture, and then no pin, no problem, you also target this pawn right now, and overall you've got a nice position. Again, most of the time your opponent will not wish to give up this pin so easily. They will play bishop h5, maintaining the pin. And now this sacrifice indeed works. Notice that if black recaptures now with the knight, their own bishop on h5 is hanging, that's the difference. And instead, if they capture your queen, which is something your opponents will do most of the time, then it leads to this indeed super beautiful checkmating pattern. Another thing you gotta be aware of is the so-called Blackburne Shilling trap, where your opponent baits you into capturing this pawn. And now, staying away from this trap is very easy, you can virtually play any move. But I want to show you how to punish your opponent for doing that, alright? But before going into the punishment, let me first show you what your opponent is hoping for, alright? Your opponent is hoping that you will capture this pawn, thinking that black overlooked it, because it also looks very tempting. We're also hitting this pawn f7, but now queen g5 is the refutation. That's the trap, basically. This is a double attack, and if white goes down the rabbit hole, then after queen takes g2, it hits the rook, then black captures this pawn with a check, and it ends with a nightmare. Here's how to punish this trap. Do not take this pawn, do not take this knight, instead simply castle. Now this pawn on e5 is hanging for real, and black trades on f3 to eliminate your knight. Now this f7 pawn is hanging, it's almost a checkmate, scholar's checkmate threat. Black covers that, and now there's another important moment. Don't just play any casual moves, instead play d4. We're ahead in development and we want to make black pay the price for playing that unsound trap on you, alright? Now black captures the pawn, and e5 is the move that wins the game. We're attacking the knight, but the knight cannot move away, because in that case queen takes f7 would indeed be a checkmate. Therefore, black will have to either give up the knight and totally ruin their position, or if your opponent is more advanced, maybe they'll come up with the move d5, a counterattack, which allows black to seemingly hold on and somehow keep in the fight. But now you've got bishop g5, a very strong move, both protecting your pawn but also x-raying black's queen. So now the straight on f6 would be really bad for black because of this. And otherwise, they would probably wish to keep the position close by playing g6, because otherwise you could take yourself with multiple threats, right? But now your rook comes into play, and then it's a moment for don't judge a rook by its cover. You sacrifice the rook right here, and then the pawn comes forward with a check and a discovered attack. Fischer once said that the first move e4 is best by test, and I guess this could count as the test. This e4 pawn really made a pretty bright progress right here and is winning the game. Black's king is in check. If it moves, you grab the queen, the king is open, you can play whatever you want, and you're just winning. Moving on to the main lines, bishop c5, known as the Giuoco piano, the quiet game. But with our third attacking plan, you're gonna make it anything but not quiet. c3, getting ready to grab the center with d4 and attack black right there. The main move by black here is knight f6. We'll talk about that. I'll show you some really simple and very effective plan there. But before, I know that many of your opponents don't follow main lines, they play different random stuff, and therefore I want you to be ready. What if they play h6? Sometimes they want to prevent your knight from jumping there, because we know that in some variations that is indeed very unpleasant. Therefore, many of your opponents will play this. In this case, there is another attacking pattern which comes as a total surprise, because typically they expect the move d4. And that's true. Mainly that's how white handles that. But there is also this left hook, which comes as a shocker. So it hits the bishop, we advance the pawn with the tempo, but we don't stop there, because as the bishop moves away, we then keep pushing this pawn forward, gaining one more tempo, and this time chasing away black's knight. And it's also quite a problem for black, because if the knight just goes somewhere, then it will no longer guard this pawn on e5, and you can just simply capture it. But your opponent comes up with knight e5, counter-attacking your bishop and asking it to make a move, and you'll be like, fine, here you have it, and you sacrifice it on f7. Now that is another unpleasant surprise by black here, right? It calls the king out, now knight takes e5, not just grabs a pawn, but does so with a check. Now for king, it's quite a tough time. If the king comes somewhere here or here, it's going to fail to this fork, and you will pick up this rook in the corner after that and save your winning attack. And in most cases, your opponents will simply retreat back. That's usually their default move in all of the similar situations. And what do you do now? When you attack, don't slack, right? We keep attacking, queen h5. And now after the king moves, queen f7 is almost a checkmate, but not quite yet, because the king can escape. And in order to shut down this escape path, you first play this sudden move, bishop a3 check. Now we're planning this queen f7 thing, and if black tries to block, then you're gonna play a move that will totally confuse your opponent. By the way, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but this en passant capture in general, and en passant capture, is the move that's been reported millions of times on chess.com as either a bug or an opponent cheating. And imagine that in this case, not only you're playing this en passant capture, but also it comes with a discover check, so your opponent cannot even recapture because their king is under this discover check. And when black realizes that and does something about that, that's still a checkmate. Quick note, if you want a clear system for finding such attacking patterns in any openings, my free masterclass is linked in the description below. And now back to the plan number 4. Here I'm talking about your pawn press. This is something black typically underestimates significantly. You're not only grabbing the center, because yes, it's very easy for your opponent to avoid this immediate danger. The bishop can just move away, for instance, with this check. But that's not the main problem of your opponent. And that's why in the Italian game they have to be very quick and very aggressive. They can't allow any lousy moves, because here these two pawns are just getting very dangerous, and you're about to push them forward, starting to kick out this knight or maybe the other one. If it comes into play, you can always play e5 and just chase it back. Moreover, your pawns aren't going to stop there. If let's say the knight just moves away somewhere, then after d5 you're going to keep pushing. Now this knight does not even have any convenient squares to go to. If it goes here, you can keep pushing. Again, that's this useful attacking pattern because it works across different variations. And now, just think about it. You think, okay, this knight can just go away. Yes, that's true. But the real problem for black is because of this pawn on d6, which is going to stay there, it's going to prevent black from developing the bishop, developing the queen, developing the rook, and therefore, it's just totally hopeless already. What if, instead of retreating back, your opponent just moves forward? And now this poor pony is pinned and attacked, and also ignored by his teammates by this castling. I mean, that's life. It's not always that nice, right? But being more serious, this is actually a brilliant idea by white, one of the main traps that white has in the Italian game. Here, you get your king out of this pin, meaning that this knight is now free to go and capture the other one on e4, and it also means that black has no way out. They have to do something. Now this knight is hanging on e4, d5 is coming, therefore they have to bite the bullet and just take this knight on c3. You recapture, threatening the bishop. Black takes on c3, hoping that it gives them some time by attacking the rook, and then they're going to castle, but they won't have this luxury because queen b3 is another beautiful idea with this double attack to black's bishop and also this pawn on f7. And if black takes the rook, then bishop takes f7. The trick is, yes, you've sacrificed a rook, but black spent way too much time to just grab this inactive rook on a1, and you use that time to fully complete your development, and now you get into this decisive attack. Bishop a3 comes with another check, d6, black is desperately trying to cover, you trade there, and then open up this opportunity to checkmate black's king. Black will usually defend this square somehow by moving the queen in one of these squares, let's say something like this, but then you have another unpleasant surprise. Bishop takes d6, a beautiful combo that deflects the queen from this defense and pushes this checkmate. By now we have seen how dangerous it is for your opponent to play any random second best moves. They really need to get into the main line with knight f6, attacking your central pawn, and getting ready to castle right on the next turn. That's basically the only move that keeps black in the game, in the fight. And now there is a move d4 which leads to a ton of complications, a ton of theory, but I want to keep it simple for you. And instead of that, I'd recommend the move d3, which simply protects this pawn, and although it looks a little modest and defensive, there is actually a very clever attacking plan behind it. But before we get into that, there is also this question: what if now black decides, you know what, if white is playing so passively, how about me taking the initiative and just attacking myself? And in general, it would be really great for black. If black could just castle on the next turn, their position would be absolutely phenomenal. But you've got the move queen b3, another interesting attacking pattern. We have seen that this battery of the queen and the bishop lining up along this diagonal is a common attacking pattern, and here it works just as well. It attacks this knight on d5, but the knight can't easily retreat because it also has to guard this pawn on f7. If the knight moves, you capture the pawn, you check the king, and that's bad for black. Instead, most of your opponents will try to defend the knight. But now, even though the knight is defended, but this pawn on b7 is no longer guarded, and you can go ahead and capture the pawn. That attacks the other knight, this time on c6. And at first it looks like, okay, black will just retreat or defend it somehow. But how can black do it? If the queen comes, it's going to drop this rook on a8. The queen really had to stay there to protect it. Therefore, that's not an option. And if the knight moves anywhere, here or here, in both cases, you're going to play queen b5 with this triple attack, and you've already won this pawn on b7, and now you'll also win one of black's minor pieces on top of that. Let's say your opponent keeps playing correct moves, black simply castles, and now bishop b3. A very nice prophylactic move, because this bishop is actually powerful. It takes aim at your opponent's king, and we would love to keep this bishop. Now, why do we slide it back? Because otherwise, when your bishop stands here, sometimes your opponent is going to go there, knight a5, and will trade it off. And that's why we want to retreat, so that if your opponent ever comes there, the bishop always has an escape square, and therefore your opponent cannot trade off this bishop easily. Now, in most cases, they will just keep their development, and now bishop g4, strangely, is such a normal, natural, good-looking move for black, but it turns out to be a mistake, because you have a very interesting follow-up attacking plan. First off, you play h3, asking this bishop to make a decision. If it captures on f3, no problem, we just recapture. Our queen will be closer to the kingside, which is nice for us. It will actually support our kingside attack down the line. We'll also bring the bishop right there, and we'll keep doing similar things to our main attacking plan. Most of the time, your opponents will wish to maintain this pin, will retreat the bishop back, and now you've got knight to d2. And I'm giving an exclamation mark, not just for the move, but for the entire plan. The plan is to keep horsing around, reroute the knight right here to the kingside to g3, and somehow it gives you this very powerful attack on the kingside. And it develops slowly, and by the time your opponent realizes the danger, it's usually already too late. Now, I will also show you in a minute how Garry Kasparov put this plan on steroids, but for now, let me just show you the main plan. So here the idea is, let's say black plays whatever, usually they play some rather useless moves, whatever, which doesn't really change anything. Or let's even assume they try to challenge you in the center. What do you do there? I mean, you do nothing. You can just provide some additional support for your central pawn, and then you stick to the plan. So let's say they trade, move the queen or do whatever, rook e1, providing the square for your knight, and then your knight actually goes for this journey. It's going to go there to g3, putting pressure to this bishop, and getting ready to jump to f5. Now, in this game, black retreated the bishop prophylactically, white still went there, then rook d7, black is trying to capitalize on this open file, knight h4, that's the next step of our plan. You really wish to land your knight to f5, and if you can do that, if you can keep your knight there on f5, it's usually game over for black, because the knight is just way too strong, controls way too many squares in black's position. All right, so knight h4 aims for this square. Black played rook to d8, doubling on this d file, but they can't really do anything because you already control all these squares, right? So black can't really do much there. And white could have played just knight f5. That's very good, very strong. In the game, they played bishop g5, also nice, pinning black's knight. And now h6 is what black played in this game. And actually, black player is an 1800 rated player, but you just can see how difficult it is to play this position as black. And I've personally won a number of games as white by using this little tactical trick. Black kind of forgot that they cannot recapture, and now once the h pawn is moved, they can't take with this pawn as well, which means that they simply lost a piece because of this pin. Your bishop standing in ambush prevents black from capturing, and now they're down a piece, and your knight attacks the queen as well. Now that's a total disaster. In the game, black retreated the queen, but now I can take on f6. And of course, you don't have to remember all these moves. I'm just showing you patterns, right? So now queen h5, bring the queen into the attack. Then knight f5 comes, and that all will result in a quick checkmate. So something like this will occur, and then let's say black captures, and that leads into a checkmate. Notice that your bishop still takes part in the attack, and that's why I told you earlier that this bishop is a very important attacking piece in the Italian game. And next up, we'll see how Garry Kasparov made it 10 times more aggressive. He just moved the knight to d2, which is a part of our plan, but noticed that he delayed castling. That's very important. There are two reasons behind it, and we'll see them in a moment. So after that, he played queen e2 just to solidify the situation overall, and then he jumped with his knight to f1. Now, here's the first reason for delaying castling. If white had castled, then there is this rook on f1, right? So the rook would move there, and then it would occupy the square. And you'll have to waste a tempo moving the rook away. But now that's not the case, you can jump there straight away. But there is also the second reason, because you can also play g4. If your king were there on g1, that would be quite risky to move this pawn forward. But now with the king in the middle of the board, that's totally fine. And although this move looks a little scary, don't try it at home, but in reality, it is the most aggressive and the best way for white. Because yes, it kind of looks like you're ignoring development, pushing pawns forward, and keeping your king in the center and just violating all the opening rules, and why not, you only live once. In this position, it actually is justified because there's not much your opponent can do. Like, the center is locked, and his pieces just can't come forward, you know? That's also the beauty of your pawn structure. It just controls all these squares, and your opponent just can't get any counterplay. Now, black played knight e7, trying to control the square. Knight h4 adds more firepower to your attack, and then the knight finally landed to this great square f5. Black tried to trade it off, but another disadvantage is now the g-file is open, and Garry puts the rook right there, taking aim at the king. The king immediately chickened out, tried to hide here in the corner, but knight h5. Garry keeps attacking, this time the pawn on g7, the knight. After an exchange, also white's queen got involved into the attack, and now we're hitting this pawn on f7, bishop takes the pawn is what's coming, and if black tries to block this diagonal or move the pawn or block the diagonal anyhow, there are frankly plenty of ways for white to finish it off. You can play f6 to disrupt the king's pawn chain, or even sacrifice the bishop right there, and that leads to a checkmate. If you want to learn how to find such attacking patterns in any openings that you play, I cover that in my free masterclass, the link is in the description. And if you'd like to get a complete middle game guide, then you'll probably like this video right there, and see you next time.